The Indian River County Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Thursday, October the 28th, 2010 will come to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge that item number 3 under public discussion, INEOS, the Indian River Aerodrome Property Owners Association's appeal of a decision by the Community Development Director has been withdrawn and will not be heard this evening. We need approval of minutes of September the 9th, 2010.
Second.
Motions and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously. Item 4A, a public hearing. Would like for anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the issue this evening, you'd please stand to be sworn in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Item 4A, the Polina Farm. Request for special exemption use approval for a residential migrant housing facility. Mr. McCoy.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman Smith. The first thing I'd like to do is just explain the handout that I put on your desk prior to the meeting, and that's just to confirm that the maximum number recommended by staff and requested by the applicant is 12 people. So I just wanted to make that clear in starting out. Next, I would like to get into the presentation, and this is a special exception use request for agricultural dormitories related to a horse farm. And the dorms are a special exception use in the agricultural district. The special exception process has specific land use criteria which the applicant has met. It's also to be viewed with the appropriateness and the compatibility of the requested use. There are 2 public hearings, and the Planning and Zoning Commission in this particular instance is to make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and the Board of County Commissioners is to take the final action on the request. As far as the location, it's located at the southeast corner of 53rd Street and 66th Avenue on 57 acres. It's zoned A1 agricultural, as is all the surrounding property. This is an aerial of the subject site. It's a 2007 aerial site. Looks different now because there has been development of the horse farm on the site. It does show you that there is a home to the south. There are some homes to the west across 66th Avenue, and there are a couple of homes to the north as well on the north side of 53rd Street. This is an overall view of the site plan, and what I've highlighted here are the 2 lakes. There's a yellow is the single-family home at the front. The 2 orange structures are barns for homes, and the green structure at the south end or the bottom of the slide is the proposed dormitory, and the next slide is a detail of that area. So this is an outset of that area, and it shows you the dormitory. It's 100 feet from the south property line, and it's required by the code to be at least 50, so they're more than the required setback. This is a building elevation. One of staff's concerns is with a residential structure that it looked either residential or agricultural, that it didn't have an industrial look to it. So that's one of the conditions, is that and we feel that this structure more than meets that condition as far as looking residential or agricultural in nature. The next is the floor plan to give you a layout. It's 11 rooms with a utility room. One of the rooms will be double occupancy to get to the 12 people number. As far as traffic circulation, the orange shows the looped system, It is a loop proposed around the barn structure, the south barn, and then back out. It is a single access point on 53rd. It is a full movement driveway on 53rd Street. As far as stormwater goes, the stormwater will be treated in the two ponds. They're connected, and then it will eventually outfall to an Indian River Farms canal. As far as landscaping, there's really two landscaping features in general. One is a tight C buffer along the south property line for 500 feet adjacent to the dormitory type use, shielding the dormitory and some of the parking and other things that are located at the south end from the property to the south. And then along 66th Avenue and 53rd Street, widely spaced canopy trees are proposed. Other items I'd like to mention is there is a corner clip, which is a little bit of additional right-of-way, basically a triangle at the intersection that's required to be dedicated. We have gone through the specific land use criteria for the migrant worker. We're called seasonal housing, and we do feel that it should be tied to the horse farm as horse farm workers rather than sort of the overall migrant. And all the general criteria have been met through the proposed buffers and the siding and things like that. With that, staff would like to get to the recommendation. Staff does recommend that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend the Board of County Commissioners approve this with the amended condition or added condition that we've distributed, that it be strictly limited to 12 people residing at the facility. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Questions, Commissioners?
I have them, but I didn't want to wait.
You want to wait? Okay. All right. If there are no questions, I guess we'll go to the public hearing. So we will commence public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to the issue, if you'd come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. Jeff Barquette with Schulke, Little and Stoddard, 1717 Indian River Boulevard. And thanks, John, for that. And I'd like to introduce you to Mr. and Mrs. Bender here tonight, the owners of the property, Stefan Lundberg and John Granith with Proctor Construction. It's exactly what John said it is. It's a dorm for 12 people. The Benders have been in the trotting horse business for, I believe, over 50 years with several world champions in Sweden and in the U.S. And everything Mr. Bender does, from the book he gave me, is 100% top class. And as you can see by some of the partial pictures here, this is a true incredible facility. And the facility, the dorm, what we're here for tonight, is purely for, the training facility is for training personnel of the horses. And with that, between all of us and myself, hopefully I can answer any questions you might have.
Any questions? Hearing none.
Thank you.
Would anyone else from the audience wish to speak to the issue?
Good evening. My name is Tom Lewis. My address is 6420 53rd Street. So we're right across the street from the Palamo farm. And I'm here with Doug Fleischer, who is also my neighbor across the street as well. And I just want to let you know that I really do support the special exception. I think it's a beautiful facility. It's good for Vero Beach. My only concern is the amount of traffic that would be going through 53rd Street, which is a dirt road. It is a high-maintenance road. It's very dusty. It requires a lot of grading here and there. And Doug and I do get a lot of dust from the road because of the direction of wind flow from out of the southeast. So my only recommendation would be to somehow get that road paved. But otherwise, as far as the special exception, we have no problem with that. So I do have one question, though, as far as traffic flow. That's only going to be seasonal, I guess. You're going to be there seasonally, or?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
From this
Yeah.
to March, April, May.
Okay. Do you have any plans for paving the road at all?
No, sir, we don't.
Okay. Well, that would my only concern would be the road, the traffic on the road. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
53rd, if the county ever gets any money, is scheduled to be slated to be paved at some point, isn't it?
Correct. 53rd Street is in our long-range transportation plan, the 25-year, and it's actually in, not in the 5 years, but it's in some of the closer years, and 53rd Street will be paved within the next 2 years from US 1 to 58.
I mean, that ain't going to help them. There's always concern on these dirt roads for traffic, especially as dry as it is now, and probably as dry as it will be this winter.
Yeah.
And you know, we create a lot when we drive down that road ourselves, so I don't blame them for asking. I just, for the little bit of traffic they're going to generate, it's a little hard to force the guy to pave the road, but if the neighbors all want to get together and ante up and pave the road, we would be happy to support that. I thought Doug might stay.
Anyone else? Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. And now? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question, and it's regarding it's regarding the density of this multifamily, and I don't in the new recommendations that were passed out. You said the proposed facility will result in 0.21 persons per acre. I don't know how that relates to 1 unit per 5 acres, which is the underlying land use designation density. And the existing single family is on a 5-acre parcel that, although it's under common ownership, is listed by the property appraiser as separate. So if we take that out of the equation, we got 52 plus or minus acres, and we've got a dozen people. And by my calculations, if we're collecting up all the units and putting them in one spot, we ought to be at about 10.4 people.
There's a couple of different ways to look at it. If you had 50 acres, you could have 10 homes. And in a single-family home, averages about 2.5 people per unit.
That's the process.
So
I was going to say, don't confuse units and people.
Well,
you get to about 25 people. What the special exception criteria does in the criterion, it breaks down the dormitories and even lets you go higher than that, because it lets you go to 4 people per acre on these types of facilities, setting that as the maximum. What we're trying to do is illustrate that they're far below that.
thank you for that clarification. The distinction between units and bodies is a little confusing in agriculture.
In migrant, well, never mind, I won't go there.
Yes.
Other questions? John, just as kind of an aside, if a person had a concern about somebody being there seasonally or non-seasonally, or the number of individuals they thought might be there at the time above and beyond what is allowable through this, what would be the proper procedure for having that checked?
They would call us and it would go through our code enforcement department. And just FYI, in talking to the applicant, they've indicated that there would be essentially a year-round person responsible for caretaking and maintenance of the facility, but that generally, as I understand it, their season is sort of October through April is when you'd expect to see the dorm occupied.
I have one other. Go ahead, Chad.
So we finish up.
I have one other concern kind of knocking around in my head, and it's not directly related to the dormitory, but it is related both to the public interest and to the particular location of this operation being so close to Lateral A and to the North Relief Canal, and that is the intensity of manure production and the phosphorus loading particularly, but also the nitrogen loading. And I just wondered whether there was any plans for BMPs for the operations, similar to the sort of things that the Village of Wellington has passed and uses down in Palm Beach County for their equestrian operations.
Correct. And our review concentrated on the dormitory because that was a special exception use. And the applicant can probably address better the management practices for the horses and the manure maintenance practices.
It would probably set my mind at rest to...
Yeah, again, this facility is top-notch, 100%. We spoke with the vendors before, thinking that may come up. And first of all, let me back up. We have a St. John's permit for the site, and as you know, we had to meet all the pollutant loading. So almost no stormwater runoff goes off the site without first meeting all the rules, and that's county and state rules. So anything manure that gets away from the people who scoop it up will be treated before, it enters into the canal system. But second, the manure is handled purely by scooping it up and carting it off. Mr. Bender indicated tonight that he's already been contacted by 2 adjacent property owners who are interested in possibly taking it. As far as day-to-day operations, it's, scoop it and haul it off. If that answers the question.
That handles it very nicely, as it were.
Along those same lines, and I imagine your neighbors are probably wanting to compost it to use for fertilizer, but 98 horses are going to produce a lot of poop. And you might check with Ineos if they get going and see if they can't burn that or whatever they do. Put it in their bacteria machine and turn it into the fuel.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then I had one other question. With the people that are going to be living in the dormitories, because I think that's really a much better name than migrant housing. Are these going to be like groomsmen and drivers?
They're going to be, and again, we went over all this tonight because I wasn't sure myself. They're going to be complete yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
Everything to do with the training facility. I don't know so much if the word is jockeys on these drivers. But yes, sir, all of that.
Okay.
And it is, again, seasonal, about October, like John said, to about April, give or take a little each end.
Okay.
Jeff,
Yes, sir.
I just wondered if they were going to have any chickens there, because I could use that for my Grand X onions.
Well, I'm sure they'll help you on the manure part, but I don't know about that part.
Beating a dead horse.
There won't be any of those.
Oh, all right, commissioners, what's your wish?
Move approval as presented.
We have motion for approval.
I second that.
We have a second. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Commissioner matters? Planning matters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stan Bowling, Planning Director. Just a couple of things. If there is a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting in November, it'll be November 18th. I'd send out an email to you all at the end of September. We do not know if we're going to have any items for that meeting, and we won't know for a little while. A couple of items since your last meeting in September. A couple of things that I do want to comment on. One is the CN District Land Development Regulation Amendments. That was approved by the board, as well as the associated rezoning, the BuildX. Also, the EAR-based amendments and the Corrigan Amendment et al. Amendment was approved by the board on October 12th. And that amendment, the Corrigan Amendment, did go forward with the Beatty property out. He had withdrawn from that application. And we also went before the board and they approved the LDR amendment that you all saw on eliminating the sunset deadline for freestanding signs and other corridors. That was adopted. And that's all that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Attorneys matters? No? Well, then, being a lifelong Dodger fan and hating the Giants no matter where they are or work, time to go home and see the Rangers beat them. We are adjourned.